Hi friends, my name is Trish Roberts. So I wanted to just briefly address something I saw today when I was in a cafe. I went to a cafe today and there was a fellow standing in line. This is something you don't see very often, but he had this t-shirt on which was kind of gross, really. For me anyway, as a vegan, it was gross. It had a picture of a sort of a cartoon cow looking all sort of happy, kind of almost like giving a thumbs up. And it was an advertisement for a butcher shop. Rather, under the cow, it had "Try my rump," sort of as if this sort of like cow who's happy for the butcher to kill them and happy for the public to come and eat their flesh. And this is sort of what some vegans would call suicide food as advertisements. Like animals that are happy for us to exploit them, happy for us to kill them, happy for us to eat them, and so forth. You'll see this less. It's less frequent now. This kind of ridiculous advertising. Advertisers have realized that people don't want the fact that we're killing animals and exploiting them pushed in their face. The non-vegan public are happy to eat those animals, happy to eat animal products, as long as it's not pushed in their face too much. So this kind of what vegans might call suicide food advertisements is sort of less. It's less of an occurrence than it used to be. But it still just amazes me when I see that. I think to myself, does that man really, like, is he that clueless that he thinks that a sentient cow would be happy for people to try their rump? And this is the other thing too, which also tends to go with that kind of advertising. And this is where speciesism and other forms of discrimination often go together. There's an actual sexism and misogyny that is attached to that kind of thing, because it's sort of, there's a shop around this area called Legs and Breasts, and they sell chicken breasts and chicken legs, but it's really the whole aim of that particular Legs and Breasts title is to get people who are obviously attracted to women to sort of go into that shop. It's sort of not a subliminal message, a very clear message associating eating animal products, eating legs and breasts of chicken with women, and sort of some sort of sexual message. And you'll see that often, speciesism and sexism and misogyny tied together. That's not uncommon. And this is where all forms of discrimination are related. Sexism equals speciesism, equals racism, equals heterosexism, equals ableism, and classism, and so forth. They're all related. They're all forms of ignorance. They're all forms of violence. And where you have one form of discrimination, like speciesism, you will have all forms. And so when I see, this is where I like to tie in, and I do it on a regular basis, tie in, these other forms of discrimination with speciesism, because you cannot have one without the other, and you will usually get others with speciesism. If people are quite happy to target a group like non-human animals who are sentient beings and not our resources, if they're quite happy to target them because they're a vulnerable group, they're quite happy to target other vulnerable groups because they're other. They're other, they're not us, they're not like us, in quotes. So there's something that we need to think about. And when I saw that sort of particularly crass shirt, even though advertising for animal products and advertising for animal exploitation these days is usually a lot more sophisticated than that, but the aim is, of course, is for us to believe that animals are treated humanely, in quotes, which is a complete nonsense. You cannot have humane exploitation. It's pretty much almost like an oxymoron. You cannot have that. You don't have humane animal killing either. If you've ever been to a slaughterhouse, there are horror houses. There is no such thing as humane animal use. And even if there were, it would still be wrong because they're sentient, and that's all that matters. They're sentient just like us. They belong to the moral community. So let's sort of think about that when we see these. If we're not vegan, let's think about that when we have one form of discrimination like speciesism, which targets a huge group, a vulnerable group that cannot fight back against us, that is related to these other forms of exploitation that cause violence and that are unjust. And so if as a first step to a non-violent life, we need to go vegan and address that violence in our life, that when we sit down 3 times a day to eat and to eat animals, to eat animal products like dairy, eggs, flesh, etc., honey, and when we wear animal products on our back, and when we go to circuses or horse ride or whatever we're doing. And just as a side note, it's always important as vegans to adopt and foster animals that are in shelters, because they're refugees of domestication, like cats, dogs, rats, any animal that is in a shelter. It's important that we give them a lifelong home and give them care and love, because they are refugees of domestication. But anyway, so all these forms of discrimination are related, and if we can recognize that, then we can see why it's so important for us to be vegan. It's, as I said, a first step to a non-violent life. So I hope that you will consider going vegan. Please check out my vegan resource, howtogovegan.org. And it's a comprehensive vegan resource podcast, and I hope that you'll check it out. You can listen to it anytime, in a car, if you're on the treadmill, or if you're out walking. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Okay, so thanks so much for watching. My name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. Till next time, bye for now.